Welcome to episode 1 of my personal journey. I was going to script this, but I want it to be raw and authentic. That's when I come across the most sincere and genuine. So, we're going to title this episode In the Beginning. So obviously, for those of you out there listening, I'm Mr. Green of Trade Phantoms. My name's Anthony LeBate. And, I told y'all I would do a personal journey of what got me to where I am today, which is a great place. But, I can't just start with trading. That's not the whole story. The story starts from, who I was as a kid growing up to becoming a teenager, to becoming a man, to becoming a businessman. There's a lot of stuff that came into it, and there's a lot of psychology behind it, and a lot of adversity and guidance, times when there was no guidance, and things that I wanted out of life that I didn't get right away. And there's just, so in order for me to do this right, I got to do it right. So that's how I'm going to roll with it. I'm not just going to jump in and say, hey, I've been trading for 13 years and it took me a year to get profitable and then I started teaching. We'll get there. But let's start off with Mini Anthony, Mini Mr. Green. I grew up in a place called Brockton, Massachusetts. Some of you may know it. Some of you may not. It's not the nicest place in the world. 2 world champions, boxers, Rocky Marciano and Marvin Hagler. The city has that to hang its hat on. It was actually the shoe manufacturer of the United States in the 1930s and 40s. But besides the point, Brockton was a rough spot. I was a kid. I grew up. I had an imaginative mind. I was somebody who always wanted big things. I just had that thing in me, right? That intangible thing of a dreamer, I guess you could say. I wanted success, I wanted fame, I wanted fortune, I wanted glory. I wanted everything. Problem is, though, and I think not everybody strives for that, but a lot of people do. And problem is, though, that stuff alone is good. It's motivation. But if it's not harnessed and disciplined and structured, it's wasted talent, right? Like Robert De Niro says in The Bronx Tale, saddest thing is wasted talent. I could have been wasted talent. I didn't have that kind of guidance to go where I wanted to go, or be who I wanted to be, or achieve what I thought I could achieve. I just didn't. It was just part of my upbringing, part of where I came from, people I hung out with, people I ran with. I took many, many lefts when I should have went right. Put it that simple, There was always that ability, though, I was a good student, but I got in trouble. I was a good athlete, but I would get kicked off the team, or, something always came up. There was always something interfering, and at 41 years old today, I reflect on it, and I just didn't have the guidance around me. And it is what it is, because I eventually did find the guidance. I'm going to talk a lot about guidance and mentorship through this process. It's what makes champions. It's what makes success stories. No one does anything alone. That I've learned. I'd say the biggest turning point I had was to escape Brockton. I joined the Marine Corps, the United States Marine Corps, in 2005. It was a complete escape pattern. I just needed to get away from my surroundings, and I enlisted. I did 4 years as a 0311. To those of you who are not military savvy, that means I was an infantry rifleman, grunt, ground pounder. Did a couple tours in Iraq, traveled the world, some fun places, some rough, some humanitarian spots. Was stationed out in North Carolina during those years. Obviously, before going in, I barely got a high school diploma, but I had to in order to join the military. And, I thought the military had straightened me out. It did. It did. It gave me that structure, that sense of being a part of something, camaraderie, connection. And it taught me life lessons that I wasn't ready to use in business quite yet, but I eventually used them down the road, if that makes sense. And, when I got out in 2009, I went right back to what I was doing. I went right back to Anthony from Brockton was just doing push-ups in his basement. It's an analogy. Waiting to come back and just start running with the wrong crowd again. And I did. I did. And once again, I took a lot of lefts when I should have went right. But then the story started to shift. It started to shift. And when I say it started to shift because I started cutting people out and putting the right people in place. And don't get me wrong, there were times in my life when I was the wrong person. People were cutting me out. But there was a point when I had a psychological shift, you could say. I was 26 years old. 26 years old. And I realized I wanted more. I was doing nothing with my life. Once again, though, still a dreamer. Still wanted everything. Wanted to be rich, successful. At the core root of it, though, what I really wanted, I found this out with my personal why, my personal journey as I evolved as a trader and an entrepreneur, is I just wanted to be good at something and recognized for it. That was it. Maybe that was because that didn't happen to me when I was a kid. I didn't get the recognition I thought I should have got. Whatever. That by all means, I'm a believer that you need to understand where you came from and why you are the way you are today. That's going to help you with, self-discovery and going forward. But the statute of limitations on your past can only go so far. I'm also a believer in that too. And I've done a lot of self-reflection in my time. A lot of recovery. A lot of, I guess you could say, therapy to put myself in the position I'm in today. And that took a team. That took a team. I had this shift and I realized I need to get away from what I was doing. It's wrong people, wrong actions. I was headed nowhere fast. If I continued down the path that I was going down, I'd be dead or in jail. No question. No question. The fact that I'm alive and even here talking about this is a miracle. None short of. And I'm grateful for that. And I hope when I give these personal journeys that, you take more out of it. Because, we are going to get to the part when I talk about the success and the, and the traveling and the money and the freedom. We're going to get there. But, I don't want you to, I don't want that to be the main thing that you get out of this. What I hope you can get out of it is, I have a peace today. I have a peace in my mind. And I only have that peace because, A, I am financially free. And that definition is very loose and broad and it's different for everybody. For me, financial freedom basically means I don't have to rely on anybody but me and anybody but myself at my own convenience to do what I have to do in order to not just survive, but to thrive and enjoy life. And I have that. I don't have to wake up and, be scared about, not having enough to get by. I remember those days. Absolutely. Or I owe this person, or I owe this bank, or I owe this credit card, or I get it. I've been there. Never filed bankruptcy, but was close to it at certain points. Very young. Thing that benefited me was I just would say I made my turnaround fairly early in life, But I see a lot of trade people getting into trading and investing at 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Man, That impresses me. Wow. I tell you guys that too. I'm like, it's phenomenal. You know, just, I was 15, 16, 17. I was investing was the last thing in my mind that I was thinking about. Oh, you're so far ahead of the game. Just keep showing up, man. Keep showing up. But 26, for what I had, the wreckage I had to cause in the world and what I had done up to that point, I'd done some good things that served my country. You know, I started to become a better person, but, you know, I was still lost. And I think that's kind of where I want to start to tail off into and get us ready for episode 2. I always felt lost, even as a kid. Like, I'll give you an example. Maybe some of you can identify with this, maybe some of you can't. I always felt like everybody had a plan. I always felt like when I would talk to people that they knew what they wanted and they were going to get it and they knew how they were going to get there. I always felt that way. But I didn't feel like that. And I was always wondering, you know, share it with me. Why not, right? And always inadequate. Always felt inadequate with myself. And you know, that's from upbringing and, you know, whether that's nature or nurture, whatever you want to call it. It is what it is. You know, I've, you know, come full circle with that because part of my, you know, I just call it recovery in general with mental health. That's been going on for 15 plus years, you know. So today I feel very comfortable in my own skin. That took a lot of work. And if I didn't get comfortable in my own skin, I would have never made it in business. Never. I know I wouldn't have. I might have done some things, but I wouldn't have thrived the way that I am today. And, you know, when I finally realized that in order for me to get where I needed to go, that I needed to become vulnerable and start becoming honest and admitting certain things, not just to myself, but to people that I trusted, that if that was the only way I was going to grow and be able to achieve the things that I wanted to achieve, I was willing to take those steps. And that's when I had a psychological shift. And, you know, so before trading and investing even popped up for me, for Mr. Green, you know, there was a lot that went into it. And I know for you guys out there listening, you know, there was a lot that went into it for you too. You know, I jokingly but seriously say we didn't show up in the 3rd grade on career day and said, hey, teach, I want to be a professional trader and investor. Maybe some of you did, not a lot. You know, trading and investing is something that we see it as a way out. And it is. Way out of the pain. Because what I've realized in my own journey is in order, what brought me to wanting to be able to do this and achieve financial freedom and picking this specific avenue of work. I don't like to call it work because it's still fun, but you get what I mean, of income generation. A certain amount of pain brought me there. It didn't just show up because things were great. And that's what I really want you to get out of this. Was the pain that I went through in order to, first off, admit I needed to make a change in my life and get away from all the badness and the corruptness and the stuff that's no good, and admit that I wasn't doing the best that I could, because I'm a believer in that. Do the best that you can. I wasn't doing the best that I could. Share it with another human being and then make the changes. And when I started making them changes, things started getting different. And that's where we're going to leave it today. So we're at about 15 minutes. So I'm figuring 3 or 4 of these. Okay? 3 or 4 of these. And we'll get through the whole thing. And, you know, I kind of gave you the experience today. I gave you the pain of it. You know, the journey, the mental health, the depression, the anxiety, all the things that I went through, the traumas, all that stuff, that combat veteran, you know, dysfunctional childhood, all that stuff. everything. And not everybody, look, you don't have to have that story in order to succeed. I just want you to understand that if you're somebody who's gone through anything at all, there's a way out. But there's a path. And there's a road. And you have to follow the road. And the road's long. Sometimes it doesn't feel like there's an end to that road. But there is. And what gets you through that road is people. And you gotta start to trust people. You gotta take a chance, because trusting people's tough. I get it. Trusting people's tough. And sometimes you gotta trust people that are not trusted, and you're gonna get, screwed over, and oh well, trust another one. But you need people. People need people. Period. So we'll wrap up here, episode 1, the beginning journey, and we'll get into the transition of my success, my personal journey, in episode 2. And then we'll just go from there. I don't want to stage this too much because I want it to be, like I said, very sincere and natural. So everybody, I hope I've got you intrigued. I hope I got your attention. And I'll see you soon. Everybody have a great night, or whatever time of day you're watching this.